Ryan Flanagan is a loose cannon activist who doesn't play by the rules.
All will rise. The Honorable Judge Trace Whitaker is presiding.
How do you plead, Mr. Flanagan, to the charge of malicious destruction of property and reckless endangerment of human life?
Guilty, Your Honor, but in my defense.
You have no defense, Mr. Flanagan. Your actions almost cost good men their lives.
You people, you don't want the truth. You don't need the truth, you say. Well, the truth is gonna bury you. You know what? It's gonna bury all of us. Damn time you people listened.
Mr. Flanagan, what do you mean?
You want the truth for once?
Well, concede, Mr. Flanagan. Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, as I sees it, it started last Friday at the Indiana Dunes. Those kids, they got it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Flanagan. You're going to have to explain. What kids?
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. My story starts at the Indiana Dunes, like I said. I visited the dunes last Friday. For a fun time, you see. Well, I was going on what you'd call the succession trail. You've heard about ecological succession, I would presume.
I'm sorry, I have not. Continue talking. What was going on with the kids?
We'll get to the kids. Relax about the kids. I should teach you the basics if you're to understand what I did was totally justified.
You mean the bit about reckless endangerment? You're going to have to work wonders on that one.
Ecological succession is a process by which a community becomes more stable. There are two types of ecological succession: primary succession and secondary succession. In primary succession, you're bound to see a change from one area with little soil to one that can support many plants. Secondary succession is a bit different, but my story starts out with the first stage of primary succession.
Mr. Flanagan, are you simply trying to delay your trial?
Of course not, Your Honor. Of course not. I was down by the beach, if you were wondering. That's the first stage of succession, and that's also where I saw those good kids I mentioned earlier, right?
Yes. What were they doing?
Those kids give a damn, unlike the rest of you people. They were doing a percolation. They fill up a cup of water and pour it into the soil to see how long it takes for the water to seep down into the ground.
So you like seeing kids play?
They weren't playing, Judge. They were doing science. Percolation is a scientific measure that allows us to quantify the ability of plants to live in a certain area depending on the amount of water available to the plant. And trust me, nothing grows on the beach. At the beach, most of those kids were waiting about 18 seconds when it came to the time it took for the water to travel into the sand. That's because there's nothing at the beach to hold all that sand together. No plants means no roots, and no roots means some free-flowing water. The beach is also used to high levels of sunlight and wind which constantly agitate and maintain the sand quantity in the area.
Mr. Flanagan, how is any of this relevant to your case?
I was arrested for damaging property, but what I'm talking about is a different but equally important property. You'll understand it in a minute. Well, I was about to leave the beach when I noticed a piece of driftwood laying down next to a dead trout. Now, you might not know it, but that piece of driftwood is home to a lot of different types of bugs, and that piece of decaying fish is food for even more bugs.
Your Honor, he's trying to misdirect the jury. He's got nothing to say.
In my defense, I already pled guilty. Just give me time to explain my side of the story. While I'm up at the dunes, I like to complete the succession trail. I mentioned it earlier. Well, I went through the beach and went on to see the dune builders. You see, the dune builders are what build the dune. They're the ones that get the ball rolling, and a big part of that is marram grass. Marram grass and sandweed are probably the toughest plants you'll ever meet. The seeds travel all around and go to some of the locations with the least resources. There, the plants send their roots down deep to soak up water, and in the process also begin holding together more and more sand. These plants typically need little water.
So these plants are like pioneers?
Well, I was just getting to that. These plants are called pioneer plants, and they're the ones that help build the dunes, but you shouldn't get the wrong idea. Dune builders need help from the wind to build the dune. The wind causes the sand to accumulate around the dune builders. That's how all of that sand formed into the dunes. But in this early stage of succession, there's still little organic matter in the soil. Percolation tests that I saw there, bless those kids, saw the water running through the soil in just 20 seconds. This isn't much different from what I saw at the beach.
And what happened next, Mr. Flanagan?
Reality. Reality happened next. What do you boys think I expected to see next? I won't leave you guessing. I expected to see Leaside. Maybe I should tell you a little about what Leaside is before I tell you what I saw. Maybe then you'll appreciate my shock. Leaside is where you can see the cumulative effects of the Dune Builders. You start to see little blue stem, and unlike pioneer plants, the Leaside plants don't need to be as tough. They don't have to worry about getting blown away or having their water stolen through evaporation. They're protected from the wind here, and finally, we see good percolation data here. Or, at least we would have. It would take Leaside almost 46 seconds for a cup of water to percolate through the dirt. Seeing that would have helped me confirm, for myself, that the sand in Leaside is more closely held together than in the Dune Builders. The additional plant matter would have latched onto and held the sand together.
So what's the problem?
I saw it.
It? What's it? Mr. Flanagan, need I remind you that this is a courtroom, not some trivia show.
So an abomination. They were mining over there.
Mining? That was your problem? Mr. Flanagan, you wasted the court's time to tell us that you have some sort of grudge against mining?
You don't understand. Few rarely do. Let me explain. When companies sand mine, they disrupt the natural order of the area. If an area at one point had been a Leaside, after the sand miners were gone, the dune would have to return to beach before it could move into Dune Builders and then Leaside. But not all of the areas would return to being a beach at the same time. You would eventually be left with parts of the land being in one stage of succession at one point, and having another part of succession going on right next to it. An abomination.
And you thought this gave you the right to attack workers?
Let's put it like this. I was doing to them what they did to the land. Some might call me cruel, but when you destroy pieces of nature, you ask to be destroyed yourself. I was simply enacting justice.
I'm sorry, but that isn't close to an acceptable answer for what you did back there.
I didn't expect you to understand anyway. I'm not like you people. You sit in your chairs. You all go home to your TVs. Not a one of you gives a damn about the state of nature. Not a damn one of you. Have you stopped to consider the percolation data in an area like this? There weren't any kids here, so I had to gather that data myself. Some areas of the sand mine had percolation times as low as 35 to 40 seconds, while others had times as high as 120 and 188 seconds. The areas had already entered into different stages of succession so close to each other. While Leaside was being established in some areas, blowouts had occurred in others.
Blowouts, Mr. Flanagan?
I'm sorry, I forgot that I hadn't mentioned blowouts. A blowout is a sudden loss of vegetation. It can happen for different reasons. Fires, droughts, and human contact being just a few of these causes. When it occurs, the area is reduced to the beach stage, and often we get percolation times that are similar to those seen in the beach. This area then has to be made inhabitable again by the work of dune builders before native species can return. This is called secondary succession.
I see.
Marvelous. And some of the blowouts have gotten so deep that they actually hit the water shelf. When this happens, they form interdunal ponds. This creates an entirely new ecosystem. They provide a lot of food for birds to eat and nutrients for plants to grow.
So blowouts are a good thing?
Not necessarily. After the Leaside, I entered the Jack Pine Forest. The Jack Pine Forest is full of vegetation. While the trees create a lot of shade from the sun, they also allow enough light for bushes to grow, such as the juniper bush. The juniper bush provides shelter for animals.
Get on with your story, Mr. Flanagan.
Okay. After the Jack Pine Forest, I entered the Wooded Dunes. There's a great diversity of tree species here. Hickory trees are easily spotted by their flaky bark. Sassafras trees have leaves with 3 tips. Elm trees have leaves that have serrated edges and 1 tip. Ash trees, leaves of smooth edges and 1 tip.
You've heard enough, Mr. Flanagan.
But
No, you're done.
Am I really done?
You're done.
Yes.